Mom, please tell me you are not wearing that tomorrow. My daughter was staring at my favorite Sunday hat, the one with purple feathers and rhinestones, like it was a dead animal on her beige carpet. You embarrass me, Mom. You really do. I looked at Maya, the girl I had raised on grits, hard work, and unconditional love. She was standing there in her tailored suit, terrified that her fiancé's wealthy family would see who her mother really was. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply smiled that slow southern smile that hides a storm behind the teeth. Okay, baby, I said softly. I'll be exactly who you want me to be. I put the hat away. I accepted the humiliation. But what my daughter and her new aristocratic family didn't know was that I wasn't just a loud, colorful old woman from the South. And they certainly didn't know that the simple Southern cooking they turned their noses up at was actually an empire. They were about to learn that dignity isn't something you wear like a designer label. And trust me, the tuition for that lesson was going to be expensive. Before I tell you how I brought a dynasty to its knees with a single piece of plastic, please subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment telling me where you are watching from. And I want to know, has anyone ever made you feel ashamed of where you come from? I read every single comment. I drove my 1998 Cadillac DeVille into the heart of Atlanta, the engine purring like a well-fed cat. To anyone passing by on the highway, I was just another old black woman in a big old car. The back seat was filled with boxes, homemade pecan pies, jars of peach preserves, and a special envelope tucked inside my purse containing a check for $50,000. It was my wedding gift for Maya. I had driven 4 hours from Alabama, singing along to gospel radio, feeling my heart swell with pride. My baby girl was getting married. Maya was a lawyer now. She had degrees I couldn't even pronounce, and a corner office in a glass building that touched the clouds. She was marrying Julian St. James, a St. James of Atlanta. Apparently that name means something here, like Kennedy or Rockefeller. I pulled up to the gate of her luxury apartment complex. The security guard looked at my old Cadillac with suspicion until I flashed him a smile and told him I was the mother of the bride. I parked and hauled the boxes up to the penthouse. When the elevator doors opened, there she was, Maya. She looked beautiful, polished, perfect. But her eyes didn't light up when she saw me. They darted to the hallway, checking to see if anyone else was around. "Mom!" she hissed, rushing over. She didn't hug me. She grabbed the box of pecan pies from my hands and set it on a table, wiping her hands immediately as if the cardboard had contaminated her. "You're early," she said. "I wanted to beat the traffic, baby," I said, opening my arms. She stepped into my embrace stiffly, patting my back like I was a stranger at a funeral. Then she pulled away and looked at my feet. "Mom, please take off your shoes," she said quickly. "This is a Turkish silk blend carpet. It stains if you look at it wrong." I looked at my comfortable walking shoes. They were clean, but I nodded. "Of course, baby." I slipped them off. "And Mom," she continued, her voice rising in pitch, "when Julian gets here, please tone it down." "Tone what down?" I asked, still smiling. The voice," she stammered. "The slang. Just speak properly." "Julian's parents are coming later, and they are very formal people." I felt a small crack in my heart. Just a hairline fracture. "I speak the way I speak, Maya," I said gently. "It's the voice that sang you lullabies. It's the voice that negotiated the lease on my first store." Maya rolled her eyes. "I know, Mom, but this isn't Alabama. This is Buckhead. Perception is everything." The door opened behind us. "Maya, is the caterer here?" A man walked in. Julian. He was handsome, I'll give him that. Tall, light-skinned, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my first car. He saw me and stopped. His smile didn't reach his eyes. It was a politician's smile. "Oh," he said. "Mrs. Washington, you made it." He spoke slowly, enunciating every syllable, as if I were hard of hearing. Or stupid. "Hello, Julian," I said. "It's good to see you again." He didn't offer to shake my hand. He just looked at the box of pie sitting on the marble counter. "Are those homemade?" he asked, wrinkling his nose. "Pecan pies," I said proudly. "Maya's favorite. I made them from scratch this morning." Julian chuckled, a dry, condescending sound. "That's very quaint," he said. "But we actually have a French patisserie handling the desserts for the weekend. We can probably give those to the building staff." I watched Maya. I waited for her to say, "No, those are my mom's pies, and they are delicious." I waited for her to defend me. Maya looked at the floor. "Yeah," she whispered. "Maybe the doorman would like them." The crack in my heart got a little wider. I reached into my purse and felt the edge of something small and worn. A piece of cardboard. Laminated now, but the corners were peeling. A child's drawing. Stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. 3 crayoned words at the bottom. World's best mom. Maya had made it when she was 7, the day I opened my first restaurant. I still carried it everywhere. I wondered if she even remembered making it. "I'll put my things in the guest room," I said quietly. "Actually," Julian interrupted, "we booked you a room at the Marriott down the street. We need the space here for the bridal party prep." He smiled that fake smile again. "It's a nice hotel. Very clean. You'll be comfortable there." I looked at my daughter. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "That's fine," I said. "I like hotels. They have good ice machines." I picked up my bag. I didn't mention the check in my purse. I didn't mention that I owned the building the Marriott was leasing. I didn't mention that 22 years ago, I had stood in a parking lot outside Maya's high school graduation, watching from a distance because she told me not to come inside. "The auditorium is too crowded, Mama. You won't be able to see anything anyway." So I'd stood by my car, in the Alabama heat, listening to the muffled sound of pomp and circumstance drifting through the brick walls. I'd seen her walk out afterward, laughing with her friends, tossing her cap in the air. She'd looked so happy. And I'd driven home, alone. I just walked out the door. The next morning, I met them at the venue. It was a sprawling estate on the outskirts of the city. White columns, weeping willows, manicured lawns stretching out like a postcard from a history we were supposed to forget. It was beautiful. And it was a former plantation. I stood in the driveway, looking at the main house, feeling the weight of the place settle into my bones like old grief. My ancestors had worked land like this. Cleared fields, picked cotton, built wealth for people who treated them like property. Now my daughter was paying $50,000 to get married on it. A silver Mercedes pulled up, polished to a mirror shine. A woman stepped out. She was striking. Victoria St. James. She wore a cream-colored linen suit, pearls the size of marbles, and an expression that could curdle milk. Julian rushed to open her door like Avalette. "Mother," he said, "you look stunning." Victoria adjusted her sunglasses and surveyed the scene like a general inspecting troops. Then her gaze landed on me. I was wearing a floral dress. Bright, colorful, happy. And my hat. The purple one with the feathers that reached for the sky. Victoria took off her sunglasses slowly, folding them with deliberate precision. "Oh my," she said. "I didn't know the entertainment had arrived." Julian cleared his throat, his cheeks flushing. "Mother, this is Loretta, Maya's mom." Victoria blinked. Once. Twice. "Oh," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "I apologize. With that costume, I thought you were part of a gospel choir hired for the ceremony." She walked over, extending a hand. as if she expected me to kiss it. I shook it firmly. Her hand was cold and limp, like a dead fish. "It's Loretta," I said. "Malo to my friends." "Malo?" Victoria repeated, tasting the words like vinegar. "How colorful." "I'm Victoria St. James. I suppose this is your first time in a place like this?" I looked at the plantation house, at the columns that had been painted and repainted over the rot underneath. "As a guest?" "Yes," I said. "My grandmother spent a lot of time in places like this, though, usually around the back." Victoria stiffened, her smile frozen plain text. Maya rushed over, looking panicked, her heels clicking frantically on the gravel. "Mom! Victoria! Why don't we look at the seating arrangements?" We walked into the ballroom. It was grand, I'll give them that. Crystal chandeliers, gold leaf molding, floors so polished you could see your reflection. Victoria took charge immediately, clapping her hands like a school teacher calling for attention. "The head table will be here," she pointed. "Julian, myself, Franklin, and the senator." She turned to me, pulling out a laminated diagram covered in color-coded circles. "Now, regarding your seating, Loretta." She tapped a spot on the paper with one manicured nail. It was in the back corner, up on the mezzanine balcony, behind a pillar. "We thought you would be most comfortable here," Victoria said. "You'll have a great view of the room, but you won't be overwhelmed by the crowd." "Overwhelmed?" I asked. "Or hidden?" Victoria sighed, the sound of a woman explaining something to a slow child. "We have to think about the optics, Loretta. This wedding isn't just a party. It's a networking event for Julian's firm. We need to present a certain image." She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering on my dress, my shoes, my hat. "A cohesive image." "You mean a white image?" I said. Victoria laughed, a tinkling sound like breaking glass. "Don't be dramatic. You'll still get dinner. We just need the main floor for the people who matter to Julian's future." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "We're not trying to exclude you, Loretta. We're trying to protect you. These people can be judgmental. We wouldn't want you to feel uncomfortable." It was masterful, really. The way she made my exclusion sound like a kindness. I looked at Maya. "You want me to sit in the balcony?" I asked. "Like in the old days?" Maya bit her lips so hard I thought it might bleed. "Mom, it's the VIP section," she lied. "It's exclusive." "It's invisible," I corrected. Victoria clapped her hands again, as if the matter were settled. "Wonderful. Now, let's discuss the menu. I do hope you aren't expecting fried chicken and watermelon." She laughed at her own joke. Nobody else did. Halfway through the walkthrough, I excused myself to use the restroom. The ladies' room was more luxurious than my first apartment. Marble countertops, fresh orchids in crystal vases, cloth towels embroidered with the estate's initials. I went into a stall and locked the door. I sat down and took a deep breath. I needed to center myself. I needed to remember who I was. I wasn't just the embarrassing mother in the floral dress. I pulled out my phone. I dialed a number I knew by heart. "Sarah," I said when my assistant answered. My voice changed. The southern drawl tightened up, sharpened. The softness evaporated. It was the voice of a CEO who managed 200 franchise locations across 5 states. "Loretta, is everything okay?" Sarah asked, concern threading through her words. "I need you to pull a file for me," I said sharply. "Look up the St. James family in Atlanta, Julian and Victoria. And look up the ownership of the Magnolia estate where I am right now." "On it," Sarah said. I could hear her typing, the familiar click of keys. There was a pause. "Loretta," she said carefully, "are you sure you want to do this? It's your daughter's wedding." "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I'm just gathering information." "You're planning something," Sarah said. "I've worked for you for 15 years. "I know that tone." I closed my eyes. Sarah, just pull the file. Okay, she sighed. But for the record, I think you should talk to Maya first. Before you make any decisions you can't take back. I tried talking, I said. She stopped listening a long time ago. While I waited, the restroom door opened. 2 sets of heels clicked on the marble, sharp and deliberate. I can't believe she wore that hat, a voice said. It was Victoria. It looked like a dead bird attacked her head, another voice replied. A younger woman. Probably one of the bridesmaids. Julian is mortified, Victoria said. But we need to get through this weekend. Once they are married, we can handle her. Handle her? The girl asked. We'll ship her back to Alabama, Victoria said, her voice casual, as if discussing the weather. And make sure she stays there. We just need her to sign the release forms for the wedding insurance policy. My hand tightened around the phone. Insurance? The girl asked. Don't worry about it, Victoria snapped. Then her voice dropped to a whisper. Did the card go through for the florist? No, the girl said. It was declined. I had to use the backup card, and that one is maxed out too. Victoria hissed like a snake. It's fine. It's just a temporary cash flow issue. Once the merger goes through, once Julian secures the partnership and gets access to Maya's salary, everything will be fine. I sat perfectly still. We just have to fake it for 48 more hours, Victoria continued. Sarah came back on the line. Loretta? You still there? I'm here, I whispered. Okay, this is interesting, Sarah said. The St. James family investment firm is currently under federal audit for securities violations. They have 3 liens on their primary residence. And Julian? He has over $200,000 in personal credit card debt. And the venue? I asked. The Magnolia Estate? Sarah paused, and I could hear the smile in her voice. That's the funny part. It's owned by Peachtree Holdings, LLC. I chuckled silently. And who owns Peachtree Holdings, Sarah? You do, Loretta, she laughed. It was part of that portfolio acquisition we did last November when you bought out the Heritage Properties Group. I thought so, I said. I just wanted to be sure. Loretta, Sarah said, her voice turning serious. What are you planning? I'm planning to let them show my daughter who they really are, I said. Sometimes the best lessons are the ones people teach themselves. I hung up the phone. I sat there for a moment, looking at the marble door of the stall. I owned this building. I owned the ground Victoria St. James was standing on. I owned the tables she was setting, the chairs she was arranging, the very floor beneath her expensive shoes. And she was talking about shipping me back to Alabama like a piece of broken furniture. I flushed the toilet. I walked out of the stall. Victoria was applying lipstick in the mirror, her mouth a perfect crimson bow. She saw me and jumped, her hand slipping, leaving a red streak across her cheek. Loretta, she said, clutching her pearls. How long have you been in there? I washed my hands slowly, using the expensive lavender soap. Taking my time. Long enough to know that the plumbing works, I said. It's a beautiful building, isn't it? Solid foundation. I always say you can tell a lot about a place by what's underneath. Victoria eyed me suspiciously, dabbing at the lipstick smear with a tissue. Yes, quite. I dried my hands on one of the embroidered towels. You know, Victoria, I said, meeting her eyes in the mirror. Sometimes things look perfect on the outside, but underneath, the pipes are all rusted, corroded, ready to burst at any moment. I smiled at her reflection. Ready for lunch? That evening, I was in my hotel room when there was a knock on the door. It was Victoria and Maya. Victoria was holding a garment bag like it was a sacred offering. We brought you a gift, Victoria said, breezing into the room without waiting for an invitation. For the rehearsal dinner tonight. She unzipped the bag with a dramatic flourish. Inside hung a suit. It was gray, polyester. Shapeless. It looked like a uniform for a prison warden or a high school lunch lady from 1975. We thought this would be more appropriate, Victoria said. It's subtle, elegant. It won't distract from the bride. I touched the fabric. It felt cheap and scratchy, the kind of material that would make you sweat under hot lights. You want me to wear this? I asked. To a 5-star restaurant? It's a very respectable brand, Victoria lied smoothly. And gray is very slimming, very sophisticated. I looked at Maya. She was standing by the window, looking out at the city lights, her arms wrapped around herself. Maya? I asked. Do you think I should wear this? Maya turned around. Her eyes were red. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. Mom, please, she said. Just wear it. Victoria says the colors need to be coordinated for the photos. Everything has to match the palette. Baby, I said gently, I look like I'm going to mop the floor in this. Mom, Maya snapped, her voice cracking like a whip. Stop making this difficult. Why do you always have to be so much? So much what? I asked calmly. So loud, she said, her voice breaking. So country. So embarrassing. She took a step toward me, and I saw tears gathering in her eyes. Julian's family is important. They are elite. They have connections. They have standards. She gestured at me, at my colorful dress, at my jewelry, at everything I was. And when you show up with your bright colors and your loud laugh and your stories about the kitchen and the struggle, you embarrass me. The words hung in the air, heavy, toxic, final. You embarrass me. I looked at my daughter. I remembered carrying her on my back while I stirred pots of collard greens in the kitchen of my first restaurant. I remembered the weight of her, warm and sleeping, her little hand clutching my apron string. I remembered sitting up with her all night when she was studying for the bar exam, making her coffee at 3 a.m., telling her she was brilliant, telling her she was a queen. I had built an empire so she would never have to bow her head to anyone, so she would never have to make herself small. And here she was, bowing, and asking me to kneel beside her. A memory flashed through my mind, sharp as broken glass. Maya's college graduation. I'd driven 6 hours to be there. I had arrived early, parked near the auditorium, wearing my best dress and my favorite hat. I'd called Maya to tell her I was there. Mom, she'd said, her voice tight, the auditorium is so crowded, you won't be able to find a seat. And the parking is a nightmare. Why don't you just wait at the hotel? I'll come see you after. I'd known what she meant. Don't come inside. Don't let my classmates see you. So I'd sat in the parking lot in my Cadillac, in the Alabama heat, with the windows down. I'd listened to the faint sound of the ceremony drifting through the brick walls. I'd watched the graduates pour out afterward, caps flying in the air, families taking pictures on the lawn. I'd seen Maya laughing with her friends, posing for photos, her arm around a blonde girl I'd never met. She looked so happy, so free. I'd driven home that night and told myself it was fine. She was just young. She was just trying to fit in. She would grow out of it. But now, standing in this hotel room, looking at this gray polyester suit, I understood. Maya hadn't been trying to fit in. She'd been trying to erase me. I looked at Victoria. She was smirking, just a tiny, victorious smirk at the corner of her mouth. She had won. She had turned my daughter into a weapon against me. I took a deep breath. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. Because if I fought now, I would lose Maya forever. I had to let this play out. I had to let them show her who they really were. Sometimes you have to let people touch the hot stove before they understand what fire means. Okay, I said. I'll wear it. Maya let out a breath of relief, her shoulders dropping. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for trying. She hugged me. But it felt like she was hugging the gray suit, not me. Like she was grateful I was finally willing to disappear. We'll see you at the restaurant at 7, Victoria said, already heading for the door. Don't be late. And please, try not to talk too much during dinner. We have important toasts to make." They left. I stood alone in the hotel room with the ugly gray suit hanging on the back of the door like a ghost. I walked over to the mirror. I looked at myself, at my colorful dress, at my jewelry, at my face. "Malo," I whispered to my reflection. "Get ready. It's showtime." The restaurant was one of those places where the menu doesn't have prices and the waiters look like they stepped out of a fashion magazine. Le Lumière. Everything was white and gold, crystal and silk. I walked in wearing the gray suit. It was tight in the arms and loose in the waist, pulling in all the wrong places. I wore no jewelry except my wedding ring. I pulled my hair back into a severe bun. No makeup. No color. I looked small, diminished, invisible. When I arrived at the table, Julian didn't stand up. Nobody did. Victoria nodded at me. "Oh, good, you found the service entrance," she joked. The rest of the table laughed. Sharp, cruel laughter that bounced off the white walls. Julian's father, Franklin, a man who looked like he slept in a tie, barely glanced at me. There were about 20 people gathered around the long table. Bridesmaids, groomsmen, cousins, friends of the family. I was seated at the far end, next to a cousin who spent the entire time texting, his thumb moving mechanically across the screen. Waiters poured champagne into crystal flutes. I reached for a glass. "Oh, maybe just water for Loretta," Victoria told the waiter, her hand shooting out to stop him. She's not used to vintage Dom Perignon. It might give her a headache. She smiled at me, all teeth and no warmth. "We don't want you getting sick, dough." "Water is fine," I said. I watched them eat. They ordered caviar, lobster thermidor, Wagyu beef that melted on the tongue. Victoria ordered for me without asking. "The chicken breast," she said to the waiter. "Plain, no sauce." She has a delicate stomach. I ate my dry chicken, cutting it into small pieces, chewing slowly. I observed everything. I saw Julian decline a credit card transaction for another bottle of wine, whispering urgently to the waiter to put it on the corporate account. I saw Franklin checking his phone nervously every 5 minutes, his jaw clenching each time the screen lit up. I saw Maya drinking too much wine, her laughter too loud, too forced, too desperate. Then came the speeches. Victoria stood up, her chair scraping against the marble floor. She clinked her fork against her champagne glass, the sound like a tiny bell. "Attention, everyone," she said. The table fell silent. "I want to propose a toast to our beautiful couple." She put a hand on Julian's shoulder, her rings catching the light. "My son, the star, and his lovely Maya." She looked at Maya with what I can only describe as pity wrapped in silk. "You know, when Julian first brought Maya home, we were concerned. We didn't know what to expect." The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. "Maya comes from a very different background," Victoria continued, each word carefully chosen. "She didn't have the advantages our children had. She didn't have the finishing schools, the European vacations, the debutante balls, the connections." She turned her gaze to me, and I felt it like a spotlight. She came from humble beginnings. Very humble. A single mother working in a kitchen? A diner? Serving food to make ends meet. "A restaurant," Maya whispered, but nobody heard her. "Yes," Victoria waved her hand dismissively. "Struggling. It must have been so hard, Loretta. Working with your hands day after day, never knowing if you'd have enough." She raised her glass higher. "But look at Maya now. She is like a lotus flower, rising above her circumstances, blooming from the mud." She paused, letting the word hang in the air. "From the mud," she repeated, and Eve saw several guests exchange glances. Some of them chuckled. Nervous, uncomfortable laughter. Maya looked down at her plate, her face flushed red. I felt the rage boiling in my blood. Hot. Thick. Ancient. But I kept my face blank. I kept my hands folded in my lap like a good, quiet woman. "And we are so happy," Victoria said, her voice dripping with false generosity, "to welcome Maya into a family that can finally give her the security and status she deserves." She looked directly at me, the kind of life her mother could never provide. "To the St. James legacy." "To the legacy," everyone shouted, raising their glasses. I raised my water glass. I drank. It tasted like victory, because Victoria had just made a fatal mistake. She thought silence was weakness. She didn't know that in the South, the silence before the storm is the most dangerous part. Dessert arrived after Victoria's speech. Tiny cakes covered in gold leaf, each one a work of art that probably cost more than I paid my line cooks for a week. The waiters cleared the plates with practiced precision. The atmosphere relaxed. People were laughing again, drunk on expensive wine and self-importance, their voices getting louder as inhibitions fell away. Victoria and Julian leaned in toward me, Maya sitting between them like a prisoner. "Loretta," Victoria said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "we have a surprise for you." "A surprise?" I asked. Julian pulled a glossy brochure out of his jacket pocket, unfolding it carefully. He slid it across the white tablecloth toward me. The cover showed smiling elderly people playing checkers on a sunny patio. Sunset Pines, assisted living and retirement community. Location, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I looked at the brochure. Then I looked at Julian. "What is this?" "It's a gift," Julian said, his voice warm and patronizing. "We know that living alone can be overwhelming, especially now that Maya will be part of our world. She'll be traveling for work, hosting events, attending galas. She won't have time to look after you." "Look after me?" I asked. "I'm 65, Julian, not 90. I ruin a business." Victoria laughed, a tinkling sound that made my teeth hurt. "Oh, the little diner, yes. But really, Loretta, isn't it time to rest? You've worked so hard for so long. Don't you deserve to finally relax?" She tapped the brochure with one perfect nail. "This place is wonderful. They have bingo on Tuesdays, crafts on Thursdays, and a bus that takes you to Walmart once a week." She leaned closer and I could smell her perfume, expensive and cloying. "And the best part is, we will pay for it. Maya and Julian will cover all the costs, so you won't be a burden to anyone." A burden. The word landed like a slap. I looked at Maya. "Did you know about this?" I asked. Maya had tears in her eyes. She looked at Julian, then at Victoria, then back at her plate. "Mom," she whispered, "it's a really nice place. They have a garden, activities, other people your age, and maybe it would be better, you know? You wouldn't have to worry about rent or bills or anything." "Rent?" I repeated slowly. "I own my house. I own my car. I own the block my first restaurant's on." But Maya didn't know that, because I had always taught her to value work, not wealth. To measure success in character, not credit cards. And now, that lesson was biting me. "So," I said, my voice calm and measured, "you want to ship me off to a home in Alabama so I don't embarrass you here in Atlanta?" "It's not about embarrassment," Julian said quickly, his hand cutting through the air. "It's about compatibility. Our lives are moving in a certain direction, and we want you to be comfortable elsewhere." Victoria smiled, showing all her teeth. "Think of it as an early retirement. A ward for all your hard work. You just sign the papers, we handle the monthly fees, and you can relax. Enjoy your golden years." She pulled out a pen from her purse. "We even brought the enrollment forms. You can leave right after the wedding. We arranged a shuttle to take you straight there." I looked at the three of them. The fiancé who wanted my daughter's salary. The mother-in-law who wanted my daughter's soul. And my daughter, who was willing to sell her mother to buy a ticket into their fake kingdom. Something inside me snapped. Not a loud snap. Not a dramatic break. A quiet one. Like a lock clicking open. Like a chain finally letting go. I picked up the brochure. I looked at the smiling old people on the cover, frozen in their manufactured happiness. Sunset Pines, I read aloud, starting at $3,000 a month. We'll handle it, Victoria assured me, waving her hand as if money were air. Don't worry about the cost. Consider it our gift to you. I put the brochure down carefully, smoothing out the wrinkles. I looked at Maya. You really want this? I asked. You want me to go? Maya closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek, cutting a path through her makeup. She nodded. Just once. I think it's for the best, Mom. Okay, I said. Okay. I sat back in my chair. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I just waited. Because the check was coming. And tonight, the bill was going to be much higher than they expected. And I wasn't talking about the food. The waiter returned to the table carrying a leather folder, placing it gently in the center of the white tablecloth like an offering. Victoria snatched it up before anyone else could breathe. I've got this, she announced loudly, her voice carrying across the restaurant. It's the least I can do for family. She pulled out a shiny gold card, holding it up so the light caught the plastic, making it gleam. Put it all on this, she told the waiter with a dismissive wave. And add a generous tip. We appreciate good service. She smiled at me, her lipstick perfect, her eyes cold. See, Loretta? This is how we take care of things. This is how people of means operate. I didn't say anything. I just sipped my water, watching her over the rim of the glass. The waiter took the card and walked away toward the back of the restaurant. The table continued to buzz with conversation. Julian was holding court, talking about his upcoming partnership and the major merger that was going to change everything. Maya was staring at the brochure for Sunset Pines, tracing the edge with her finger in small, repetitive circles. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, the waiter returned. He wasn't smiling anymore. His face was carefully neutral, professionally blank. He walked over to Victoria and leaned down, whispering discreetly into her ear. But Victoria wasn't discreet. What do you mean declined? She shrieked, her voice sharp enough to shatter the crystal. The conversation at the table stopped dead. Every head turned. There must be a mistake, Victoria said, her face flushing red. That card has a $50,000 limit. Run it again. I'm sorry, ma'am, the waiter said, his voice quiet but firm. The machine says, do not honor. I tried it twice. Victoria's face went from red to a deep, blotchy crimson that clashed with her pearls. It's the bank, she stammered, her hands fluttering. They probably flagged it for security because of the large amount. They're very protective of their cardholders. Very cautious. She turned to Julian, her eyes wide and desperate. Son, use yours. We'll sort this out on Monday with the bank. Julian nodded, his jaw tight, his collar suddenly looking too small. He pulled out a platinum card from his wallet. Here, he said, handing it to the waiter. Sorry about the confusion. Technical issue. The waiter walked away again, his shoes silent on the plush carpet. The silence at the table was heavy now. Suffocating. Guests were looking at their laps, at their phones, anywhere but at Victoria's face. Franklin was wiping sweat from his forehead with a cloth napkin, leaving damp spots on the expensive linen. I watched them. I watched the facade cracking. I watched the paint peeling off the rotting wood underneath. The waiter came back faster this time. He didn't whisper. He just handed the card back to Julian, holding it between two fingers like it might be contaminated. Declined, sir. Insufficient funds. That's impossible. Julian stood up so fast his chair fell backward, hitting the floor with a crash. Run it again. There's money on that card. I ran it 3 times, sir, the waiter said, his voice hardening. We need a valid form of payment. The bill is $4,500. The number hung in the air. Julian looked at Victoria. Victoria looked at Franklin. Franklin looked at the exit. They were trapped, exposed. The elite family couldn't pay for their own dinner. Maya looked at Julian with something like horror dawning in her eyes. "Julian?" she whispered. "What's happening?" I can pay," Maya said, reaching for her purse with shaking hands. "No," Victoria snapped, grabbing Maya's wrist. "You are the bride. The bride doesn't pay for anything. It's inappropriate." "Well, someone has to pay," the waiter said calmly, crossing his arms. "Or I'll have to call the manager. And if the manager can't resolve this, we'll have to call the police." The word police hung in the air like a guillotine blade. I decided it was time. I cleared my throat softly. "Is there a problem?" I asked. Victoria glared at me, her makeup starting to crack around her eyes. "Just a technical glitch, Loretta. Banking error. Don't worry your little head about it." "It looks like more than a glitch," I said. I reached down to the floor. I picked up my old canvas tote bag, the one Victoria had sneered at when I arrived, calling it charming in a voice that meant the opposite. I rummaged through it, pushing aside a pack of gum, a lint roller, and a small packet of tissues. I pulled out a small leather wallet, and from that wallet, I pulled out a single card. It was black, made of anodized titanium, heavy as a promise, cold as justice. The American Express Centurion card. The kind you can't apply for. The kind you have to be invited to own. The kind that has no spending limit. I placed it on the white tablecloth. It made a distinct sound when it hit the table. Not a tap. A declaration. "Here," I told the waiter. "Try this one. It usually works." The waiter looked at the card. His eyes went wide. He looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time, then back at the card as if confirming what he was seeing. "Yes, ma'am," he said, his tone changing instantly to one of deep respect. "Right away, Ms. Washington. Thank you." He didn't ask for ID. He didn't hesitate. He walked away holding that card like it was a holy relic, his posture straighter, his steps faster. Victoria was staring at the table where the card had been, her mouth hanging open. "Is that?" she whispered. "Is that a black card?" "I think so," I said casually, folding my hands. I get cards in the mail sometimes. Hard to keep track of them all. Julian was staring at me now, really staring at me, as if seeing me for the first time, like I'd just materialized out of thin air. "Where did you get that?" he demanded, his voice rising. "Did Maya give you a card? Did you steal her identity?" "No," I laughed, a genuine laugh that came from deep in my belly. "Maya doesn't have that kind of credit limit. Nobody at this table does. Except me." The waiter returned in what felt like seconds. "All set, Ms. Washington," he said, handing me the receipt and a pen with a small bow of his head. "Thank you for your generosity and your patronage." I looked at the bill. $4,500. I added a tip. $1,500. I signed my name with a flourish. "Keep the change, sugar," I said. The waiter smiled, a real smile this time. "Thank you, Ms. Washington. We hope to see you again soon." I stood up. The gray polyester suit suddenly didn't feel tight anymore. It felt like armor I was about to shed. I looked at Victoria. She was pale, shaking, gripping the edge of the table like it might save her from drowning. "I don't understand," she said, her voice small and lost. "You work in a diner. You make pie. You're just—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "I do make pie," I nodded. "I make the best damn pecan pie in the South. Won awards for it." I leaned in close enough to smell her expensive perfume mixed with fear. "But you know that mud you talked about in your speech, Victoria? That mud I supposedly came from?" Victoria couldn't speak. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. "That mud is fertile," I said. "That's where I planted my empire." And it grew. While you were busy painting over rot and pretending to be something you're not. I looked around the table at all the faces staring at me. I don't just work in a diner, I continued, my voice carrying through the silent restaurant. I founded Ma Lo's Southern Kitchen. A gasp went through the room. Everyone knew Ma Lo's. It was everywhere. Highway exits, shopping centers, airports. I own the company, I said. 200 locations across 5 states. I own the distribution center that supplies them. I own the trucking fleet that delivers the food. I own the food processing plant. I looked at Julian, who had gone completely white. And I own the real estate holding company that leases the land to this restaurant. And to the Marriott where you warehoused me. And to the building where your failing investment firm rents its office space. Julian's fork clattered onto his plate. He stammered. You're the CEO? You're that Washington? I'm the chairman, the CEO, and the majority shareholder, I said. And I did it all without a legacy. I did it with hard work, smart investments, and the kind of grit you think is beneath you. I picked up my canvas bag. Maya, I said, looking at my daughter. My beautiful, lost daughter. She was frozen, tears streaming down her face, her hands covering her mouth. Mom, she whispered. I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me? Because you never asked, I said, and the words hurt coming out. You were too busy being ashamed of me to ask who I really was. Too busy trying to erase me, to see me. I walked toward the door, my shoes clicking on the marble floor. Dinner's on me, I called out without looking back. Consider it a parting gift. And a lesson about judging books by their covers. I paused at the door, turning back one last time. Oh, and Victoria? That wedding you're planning? We need to talk about that tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. at the venue. Don't be late. I walked out into the night, leaving behind a table full of people who had just learned that dignity doesn't come with a price tag. And sometimes, the quietest woman in the room is the most dangerous. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my hotel room in the dark, watching the city lights blur and shimmer through the window. My phone rang 40 times. Maya. Julian. Victoria. Even Franklin called once, leaving a stammering voicemail about misunderstandings and starting over. I didn't answer any of them. I drank a cup of chamomile tea and waited for the sun to come up. At 6 a.m., I called Sarah. It's time, I said when she answered, her voice still thick with sleep. Loretta? What's happening? Cancel the wedding, I said. All of it. The flowers, the caterers, the music, the photographer. Pay whatever cancellation fees aren't necessary. I want it done by 8 a.m. There was a long silence. Are you sure? Sarah asked. I'm sure, I said. And Sarah, lock the gates to the Magnolia estate. Station security. Nobody gets in without my explicit permission. Understood, Sarah said. I could hear her moving now, getting dressed, already making calls. Loretta, she said before hanging up. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. We'll see, I said. At 8 a.m., I got dressed. Not in the gray suit. Oh no. I put on a custom-made silk dress in royal purple. I put on my pearls. Real ones. South Sea pearls the size of grapes that had cost me more than Victoria's entire wardrobe. And I put on my hat. The big one. The one with the purple feathers that reached for the sky like a crown. I looked in the mirror. There she is, I said to my reflection. There's Loretta. I drove my Cadillac to the Magnolia estate, taking my time, listening to gospel radio, singing along. When I arrived at 9 a.m., the chaos had already started. The massive iron gates were closed and locked. A private security team stood guard, arms crossed, faces impassive. Victoria was screaming at a guard, her voice shrill and desperate. Do you know who I am? she yelled, her face red and blotchy.
I am the mother of the groom. We have a wedding here in 2 hours. Open this gate immediately. Julian was on his phone, pacing frantically in circles like a trapped animal.
Call the lawyers, he shouted into the phone.
Sue them.
Breach of contract. We'll destroy them. Maya was sitting on the curb, her head in her hands, still wearing her rehearsal dinner dress from last night. She looked broken. I honked my horn. Long and loud, a sound that cut through the morning air like a knife. They all turned. When they saw the Cadillac, Victoria's face twisted with something that might have been hope. "Loretta!" she screamed, running toward the car, her heels wobbling on the gravel. "Thank God! You have the black card. You have money. Pay them. Fix this. Make them open the gate." I rolled down the window slowly, taking my time. The air conditioning blasted out, cool and crisp. "Good morning," I said cheerfully. "Lovely day for a wedding." Or a wake, depending on your perspective. "Loretta, stop joking," Victoria shrieked, grabbing the car door. "They locked us out. The owner canceled the event. They say the contract is void. They say we're trespassing." "Well," I said, examining my nails, "that sounds about right." "Pay them!" Julian yelled, running over and slamming his hand on the hood of my car. "You said you have money. Fix this. My investors are coming in an hour. This wedding is supposed to close a business deal." I opened the car door and stepped out slowly, carefully. I adjusted my hat, making sure the feathers were perfectly arranged. The security guard saw me. He straightened up immediately, standing at attention. He tipped his cap. "Good morning, Miss Washington," he said with respect. "We secured the perimeter as you instructed. Nobody has entered the property." Victoria stopped screaming. She looked at the guard. Then she looked at me. Her face went from red to white in seconds. "Ms. Washington?" she whispered. "As you instructed?" Julian repeated, his voice hollow. I walked past them toward the gate, my heels clicking on the gravel with authority. I placed my hand on the cold iron bars. "You see," I said, turning to face them, "when I bought the parent company of this estate last year, I told the board I wanted to keep it for special occasions. Personal use." I smiled. "Like my daughter's wedding." Maya stood up from the curb slowly, like she was moving through water. She walked toward me, her eyes wide, her mascara smeared from crying. "You," she whispered, "you own this place?" "I own the venue, baby," I said, my voice soft but firm. "I own the land it sits on. I own the catering company that was supposed to serve your food. I own the florist company that was supposed to do your flowers." I looked at Julian, who was standing frozen, his phone dangling from his hand. "And as the owner, I reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, especially people who have 3 liens on their house and $200,000 in credit card debt." Julian turned white as paper. Victoria gasped, her hand flying to her throat. "How do you know that?" Julian hissed, taking a step toward me. "That's private information. That's illegal." "I did my due diligence," I said calmly. "Something you should have done before you tried to scam my daughter and ship her mother off to a nursing home." "Scam?" Maya asked, her voice trembling, breaking on the word. "What do you mean, scam?" "Tell her, Julian," I said, my voice cold as winter. "Tell her why you needed this wedding so badly. Tell her why you needed her salary, her credit score, her connections at the law firm." Julian didn't speak. He couldn't. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. But Victoria could speak. And she did. "We are St. James's," she yelled, losing all composure, all pretense of grace. "We are royalty in this city. We have a legacy. You are just a cook, a servant. You have no right." "I'm the cook who owns the kitchen," I shot back. "And right now, you are trespassing on my property. You and your broke, fraudulent family." I turned to the guard. "Frank, if they aren't off my land in 5 minutes, call the sheriff's department." "Yes, ma'am," Frank said, putting his hand on his radio. "Wait!" Maya screamed. She ran to the gate, her hands gripping the bars. But she didn't run to Julian. She ran to me. "Mom, open the gate," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "Please, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Just open the gate. We can fix this. We can still have the wedding." I looked at her through the bars. My heart wanted to open it. My heart wanted to fix everything, pay all the bills, smooth over all the cracks, let her have her fairy tale. But I knew that fairy tale was built in a foundation of lies. And sometimes, the only way to save your child is to let their world collapse, so they can build something real from the ruins. "I can't do that, baby," I said softly. "I canceled the wedding." "Canceled?" Maya sobbed. "Everything?" "Everything," I said. "The flowers, the food, the music, the photographer. It's all gone. I paid the cancellation fees this morning." "Why?" she cried, her voice raw and desperate. "Why would you do this to me?" "Because you were about to marry a man who sees you as a credit card," I said firmly. "And you were about to sell your soul and your mother to do it. You were ashamed of me, Maya. Ashamed of the woman who made you." I pointed a manicured finger at her. "You wanted to put me in a home and forget I existed. You wanted to erase the parts of your past that didn't fit into this fake world." Maya flinched as if I had slapped her. "So I'm doing you a favor," I said. "I'm removing myself, and my money, and my venue, and my support." I stepped back toward my car. "Now you have a choice, Maya. You can stay on that side of the gate with the elite and their debts and their lies, or you can come home." "But—" Maya looked back at Julian. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at his phone, frantically typing, already trying to figure out his next move. He didn't care about her. He never had. He cared about the merger, the partnership, the money he thought she came with. I got back into my Cadillac. "I'm going to get some waffles," I said through the open window. "Real ones. At the Waffle House on Peachtree. Anyone is welcome to join me." I paused. "But the gray suit is not invited." I started the engine. I didn't wait to see what she chose. I put the car in reverse and backed away slowly, leaving the St. James family screaming at a locked gate, leaving my daughter standing in the middle of the road, watching the dust rise from my tires, watching her old life drive away. 3 weeks passed. I went back to Alabama, back to my house with the wraparound porch and the garden full of tomatoes and collard greens, back to my restaurants where I walked the line every morning, tasting the grits, checking the consistency of the gravy. Back to my life. I didn't hear from Maya, not for 3 weeks. And then, one Sunday morning, I heard a car pull into my driveway. I was in my kitchen, making pecan pie from scratch, my hands covered in flour and butter. I heard the car door close. I heard footsteps on the porch. I heard a knock. I wiped my hands on my apron and walked to the door. When I opened it, there she was, Maya. She wasn't wearing a designer suit. She was wearing jeans and a simple shirt. No makeup. Her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger, smaller, more like the little girl I remembered. In her hand, she was holding something. A piece of laminated cardboard, worn at the edges, faded. The world's best mom card she'd made when she was 7. "I found this," she said, her voice shaking. "In the hotel room, after you left. It fell out of your purse." I looked at the card, at the stick figures holding hands under a yellow crayon sun. "You kept it," Maya whispered. "All these years. You kept it." "Of course I kept it," I said. "It was the best gift anyone ever gave me." Maya started crying. Not the pretty, delicate crying from the rehearsal dinner. Deep, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "I'm so sorry, Mama," she said, and it was the first time in years she'd called me that. "I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong." I didn't say anything. I just opened my arms, and she fell into them, like she used to when she was small and the world was too big and scary. "I broke off the engagement," she said, into my shoulder. "I called the law firm and quit. I moved out of the apartment. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who I am anymore." "Yes, you do," I said, stroking her hair. "You're Maya Washington. You're brilliant and strong. And you're my daughter." We stood there on the porch for a long time. When we finally pulled apart, Maya looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked. Can I stay for a while? I need to figure things out." "Baby," I said, "this is your home. It always has been." We walked into the kitchen together. I handed her an apron. "You remember how to make pecan pie?" I asked. Maya smiled, a small, tentative smile. "You taught me when I was 10. "Then let's make one together," I said. We stood side by side at the counter, rolling out dough, cracking pecans, measuring corn syrup and vanilla. Maya's hands remembered the movements even after all these years. "Mama," she said after a while, "what happened to the St. James family?" "They filed for bankruptcy 2 weeks ago," I said. "The firm collapsed. The house is in foreclosure. Victoria and Franklin moved to Florida to live with her sister. And Julian? Last I heard, he's working as a paralegal in Savannah, making $45,000 a year." Maya was quiet for a moment. "I almost married him," she said. "I almost gave up everything for him." "But you didn't," I said. "In the end, you made the right choice." "Because you showed me," Maya said. "Because you loved me enough to let me fail, to let me see the truth." She looked at me, tears gathering again. "I'm sorry I was ashamed of you. I'm sorry I tried to hide you. You're the strongest person I know." I put my flour-covered hand on her cheek. "You don't have to apologize anymore," I said. "You just have to remember. Remember where you came from. Remember what matters." "I will," Maya promised. We finished the pie and put it in the oven. The smell filled the kitchen, warm and sweet and familiar. The smell of home. That evening, we sat on the porch together, watching the sun set over the Alabama fields. I was wearing my hat. The purple one, with the feathers. Maya smiled when she saw it. "I love that hat," she said. "I know," I said. "You always did." We sat in comfortable silence, rocking slowly in the porch chairs. "Mama," Maya said, "can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why didn't you tell me? About the business, the money, all of it. Why did you let me think you were struggling?" I thought about it for a long moment. "Because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I have," I said. "I wanted you to respect the work, not the wealth. I wanted you to understand that success isn't about how you look or who you know. It's about what you build." I looked at her. "But somewhere along the way, I failed you. I didn't teach you to be proud of where you came from. I taught you that work was noble, but I didn't show you that the woman doing that work was worthy of respect." "You didn't fail me," Maya said. "I failed myself. I got lost. But you showed me the way back." We rocked in silence for a while longer. "So what now?" Maya asked. "Now?" I said. "Now you rest. You heal. And then, if you want, you come work with me. Learn the business from the ground up. Not in a corner office. In the kitchen. On the line. With your hands." Maya smiled. "I'd like that." The sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "The same colors as my hat." "You know," I said, "forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing to build something new from the broken pieces." Like making pie from scratch, Maya said. Exactly like that, I said. We sat together as the stars came out, mother and daughter, finally seeing each other clearly for the first time in years. And somewhere in Atlanta, a dynasty crumbled. But here in Alabama, in a kitchen that smelled like pecans and love, we were building something better, something real, something that couldn't be bought or faked or hidden behind a designer label. We were building us. And that was worth more than all the black cards in the world. If this story touched you, if you've ever felt invisible or underestimated, leave a comment below. Tell me, have you ever had to show someone your true worth? Have you ever had to choose between being accepted and being yourself? I read every single comment, and your stories matter to me. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Because every week, I bring you stories of people who refused to be diminished. People who stood up, spoke out, and claimed their dignity. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And remember, never let anyone make you feel small. You are exactly enough, just as you are.